Hello and welcome everybody to a level 3 training number 2 called Starting Your Own Business or Side Hustle. And so what we're going to be doing today is for all level 3 trainings, we start off with a 2-minute exercise. So this is just to help us get us grounded, focused, so that we can concentrate on the great content that I'm going to be sharing with all of you today. So I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to hit play and we're just going to listen to this for 2 minutes. And I always like to joke, don't fall asleep on us, right? Because it might get very relaxing. All right, let's do this.
Hi, I'm Rosalie, and welcome to this 2-minute meditation. Find a comfortable position and allow your eyes to blink closed. Now take a deep breath in and let it go with a sigh. And again, deep breath in and sigh it out. Breathing in again. And as you exhale, let go of any worries, any concerns, any niggling thoughts. With every exhale, allowing any tension to melt away from your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Just for this moment, letting go of any worries, any concerns, knowing that you can always come back and take care of these later. Now settle into this space of ease and comfort, where there's nothing to do except to relax and enjoy this feeling. And it's time now to come fully back into your body, feeling relaxed, serene, and ready for whatever lies ahead. Namaste.
All right. Imagine if the whole world and corporate America and politicians meeting before discussing bills would have a 2-minute mindful meditation. How better the world might be, right? So let's go to the next slide, which is the learning outcomes. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, first, we're going to start off with a side discussion, right? I want to ask some of you, what if you were to start a business, what would you start with? And again, some of you may already have a business. I'd love to hear that input. And then if you do, I'd love to hear some best practices. And then the rest of the training is going to be broken into 3 parts. Part 1, I'm going to share my story of starting my own business as a coach and as a speaker. So again, some of you, maybe a lot of you who might think of actually doing professional speaking as part of your career or maybe part of your business. Again, a lot of these tips are for you. However, you could use them in whatever professional capacity. I will be talking about some principles. And then we're going to be talking about sales. Again, yuck. Most people think that sales is disgusting or that's something that somebody else's does, but we all have to do sales. So I'm going to be sharing with you some basic fundamental principles on sales that I learned. And guess what? These work because I used it for myself. I used it for my team. And that is how I had a history of breaking sales records at the different companies and organizations I've been part of. And as well as we've done elevator pitches in the past, but now I'm going to be talking about a business elevator pitch. So it might be a little bit different and the tips of different types of buyers. Because when you're going to sell something to somebody, just like we learned about DISC and the different communication styles of people, well, there are different types of buyers. And so knowing who you're dealing with can really kind of shape on how you respond to their questions and their concerns. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. And even though this whole training is about starting your own business, I might even scare you not to start your own business. So again, one of the things that I really want to do is basically share with you, I'm not here trying to pretend that I'm the most successful entrepreneur. I have failed. I have failed many times. And so again, one of the attitudes of success is you have to keep failing and just not give up if you really want to pursue something. But in my failures, in my learnings, I would love to be able to provide you how I failed, what I learned from that experience, so that you can learn from that and not have to make those same mistakes, or at least, discover it for yourself. But then remember, even if you do those same mistakes, you might remember, oh, Tim did said something about this. So maybe it kind of sets a seed. So let's talk all about that. So let's start off with the discussion. So if you were to start a business, what would you start? Or if you've already started a business, what are some of your best practices? So who would like to share? I'd really like to hear from some people. Joy, go ahead. I'd love to hear from you.
So I haven't started a business, but I hear that you need to first get your LLC.
Okay, got it. Now, that's a good point. Now, some people start off businesses as independent contractors, and they're just basically 1099 according to the tax record, right? They're not a full-time employee. And let's just say you have a full-time job and you're working and you do this little side project, or you do some, and if it's over a certain amount of money, like in my case, I did speeches and stuff like that, they would send you, they would have you fill out some tax forms. They would say, what's your social security number? Because over a certain amount of money, we need to claim that. And so guess what? You don't necessarily have to have an LLC or a business to actually do side gigs or side hustles, as long as if you're getting revenue from a company, from somebody for their services, if it's a certain amount, you have to give them your social security number. Now, I'll talk about this a little bit later. I had one of my coach mentors say, you know what, you can set up as an LLC, you can set up as a corporation, you can set up as an S corporation, so it's easier to file with your taxes and things like that. I have, particularly for my business, has started an S corp because I thought it was easy, because that's what my coach was, as an S corp, and so you end up doing the kind of similar things that other people do. But I hope that's kind of helpful for you, Joy, if you ever consider doing that in the future. And then you'll learn more, not in this training, what are the pros and cons of being an LLC, a limited liability corporation, versus a corporation versus an S corporation. It all has to do with taxes, protections, and stuff like that. Just in case somebody sues you, you want to make sure that they can't go after your personal assets. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Anybody else have any other comments on if they were to start a side business, what they might start with, or what they might be interested in doing? Let me pick on some people. What about you, Elizabeth? Are you thinking of starting a side business, or had to start have one already? Or also, if you're not available, let's ask Cherry. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
That's
Would you ever think of starting a side business? If so, what would it be?
So I have thought about starting a side business, and it would be real estate. So like property management. So I was thinking about like buying a piece of property,
Yeah.
like let's say a condo or something, and then live in it for about a year or so, and then I could rent it out and then have a tenant and get something else, maybe bigger.
Yeah. No, that is definitely in alignment with our training that we did in level 2, where we talked about invest in assets that actually provide a positive cash flow if you want to actually generate income. And real estate, or buying a home, is not an asset because it costs you more money than it actually puts into your pocket. But if you live in a home, or you actually own something that's rented out, or rent on a room, or rent a certain floor or something like that, yes, that actually develops a positive cash flow. Now, I'm going to give you, this evening is all about Tim's confessions, Um,
Okay.
but again, you learn through my mistakes. So remember, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote his book, he's all about the real estate. And so I thought, you know what? I was never really passionate about real estate, but my wife was kind of interested in real estate. And so to me, I thought the best thing that you could do is actually get training and education in real estate. So guess what I did? And also because I had my own business, Duffy Leadership Inc., which was an S corp, they always tell you you can write off expenses, with respect to your business. So any kind of education, you can actually have some tax benefit. So guess what I did? I purchased a $5,000 course. Can you believe it? For Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it was all with coaching. I did it with my wife. They had all these modules. Again, you guys are getting all this training for free, not anything like that. And so I had to pay that money, and there was like worksheets. You had a coach that was assigned to you. And guess what I learned in that real estate training course? It's like, whoa, any kind of business takes a lot of work. And there's something that I never forgot that he said, or like the trainings basically said, in order for you to be really good at real estate and buying and purchasing real estate, and in order to like rent it out as a rental property or whatever, you have to look at over 100 properties. And I was like, wow, like that's a lot of properties. But he's like, that's what you have to do to start to determine the skills that you need in order to be successful at real estate. Because I don't care whatever the property looks like, etc. In order to have a successful real estate business, it all comes down to the spreadsheet. What are the taxes? What is the cost of repair? What is the cost of maintenance? What is it that you can charge for rent in that geographic location? And if all those add up and you have a surplus of revenue, right, of $50, $100, $200, well, guess what? Then it's something that you might consider worth purchasing. And he also told me that you have to have a team of people. So you have to have lawyers, somebody who has to have to handle the lawyer transaction, somebody who's going to, a real estate agent to actually purchase the property. So there's a whole team of people that you need to identify if you're going to get into the real estate business. But as we're going to be talking in this training, you're going to really have to learn to choose the right people. And so I started to do the legwork. I started to find properties in my hometown where I found a $200,000 property with 2 different floors that I could potentially rent out. I contacted a real estate agent, and like I was starting to develop my team. But as we're going to go into principle number 1, you have to really ask yourself, is this something that brings you joy? Is this something that you're really passionate about? So that thing is the hardest part for people to understand. Why is it so important for principle 1 to create a business based on your passion and love? Because starting a business is so difficult and so hard that even with all the failures, you're just going to want to continue doing it just because you love it, right? Even if you have a loss or whatever it is, it's because you wake up in the morning excited, ready to go. So for me, when we talked about this in level 1, where we said figure out what your passion is. Guess what my passion was? I did when I was basically a member of the National Society of Leadership and Success. They had a leadership training day. Some of you guys know the story. And we did this, said figure out your passion, and they choose all the skills that you think that you have, and then choose the people who you love to serve. And guess what the answers were? Communication, empathy, college students. Well, guess what? Right now, I'm with all of you, right? And some of you guys are now young professionals, some of you older professionals, again, non-traditional students, but regardless of where you are, you're students. You guys love learning and education, and that's my passion. So, think about all the times that I've wanted to create Electus Society. I've been wanting to create it for 12 years, but I never I hesitated, I delayed. And I wonder how much further it would have been if I started working just on what my passion was and what I love. But like all of you, sometimes we get distracted. Sometimes we see shining objects or this opportunity over here. And so I have done those things like, let me start a business in here. And I'm going to talk about that later on when we'll talk about multi-level marketing and other side businesses that provide you residual income. Because guess what? A lot of us just want to be able to do what we love and have a comfortable income, but we have so much input coming from other individuals telling us, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. And again, the lessons that I have been trying to instill in all of you in Electus Society is, no, take out all that noise. You can actually learn from it, but start listening to your higher self. Start listening to your gut instinct. What is it that you're passionate about? Go out and do something with that. And yes, if you can learn and avoid mistakes as much as possible, then even better. So let's go to the second step, which is if you're going to start a business, why recreate the wheel and start from scratch? The best thing for you to do is talk to people with 10, 20, 30, 40 years of experience that are doing exactly what you want to do. And they tell you, this is what worked for me. And so you get to actually do that and try that out and then make tweaks and etc. So that's why they say don't recreate the wheel, because if it's already created, use that wheel and get further along than having to restart in the process all over again from starting a business from scratch. So I included in the slide some of the most famous speakers, renowned, successful people. They all had mentors, and they talked about them during interviews. It was Oprah Winfrey. She talked about Maya Angelou, how important she was as a mentor to her. Jack Canfield, who did Chicken Soup for the Soul and the Success Principles, which I'm going to talk about later. He had W. Clement Stone as his advisor. Tony Robbins, is considered one of the most successful motivational speakers of all time, of our generation. Guess what? Even he had a mentor, Jim Rohn. And so for me, when I wanted to start my career as being a speaker or whatever, I looked to Gary Turak. Now, Gary Turak was the National Society of Leadership and Success founder, and now he serves as his chief visionary. And he traveled all around different colleges doing speaking engagements. I ended up working for him in 2008. And when I worked for him, we wanted to help grow the society. And he's like, Tim, I will train you and teach you everything about how to become a speaker. And again, I can't put into one training all the different lessons that he gave me, but some of them are going to be in here. But he helped me out tremendously. So I'm actually going to share with you some of those tips that he helped me that you can apply to you, if whether you want to become a speaker, or maybe it's some other kind of business, or if you have a business and you have to do a presentation, maybe you can use some of these tips. Okay. So here we go. The first, if you're going to become a speaker, you have to write out a speech, right? So what do you know? What are you going to talk about? Well, Gary told me, he's like, if you only had 1 minute and you had the opportunity to share a whole world with your message, what would you say? And so by you not focusing on like a 45-minute, an hour speech, having you visualize that, crystallize that main point, if you had that microphone, and something that really hits you in the heart, if you're on your deathbed and this is just one thing you want to communicate to the world, that is what you write about, right? That is what you do your speech on, right? Because then it's going to come from a deeper place, not just, I think this is going to do well, or people seem to be interested in this. No, you're losing your heart, that connection, that higher self with what you're meant to share with audiences around the world, okay? Tip number 2 is write your stories, because all you have is your life and your stories. That's what makes you you. And if you don't have stories, then all you have is what you know, meaning things that you've read or researched. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they just don't read books. So if you are a person who actually reads books, well, guess what? That already makes you, I'm making up this number, the top 20% of any kind of group or population or people that you're talking with in terms of knowledge. So you can add value or put in your stories or your speeches, not things that you necessarily experience, but things that you've read about from different experts and authors who've lived those experiences, because those authors and those people can't be at all the places at all the same time. And guess what? You're giving them credit, because guess what? It's adding value for people. So that's exactly what I did. I had my stories from my childhood, my different sufferings. I also had these lessons that I learned about leadership, and that's what became my first speech. So then the next tip that he says, and this is what we used also in NSLS, the National Society of Leadership and Success, when we were coaching, whether it was celebrity speakers or authors or different individuals, that they had to talk to a whole large group of students and faculty and create speeches, right? Some of them have never even created a speech before. And we always gave the same advice, just like my mentor taught me. A great speech is simply two things. It's great stories and great learning lessons, right? So that means you have stories that hit people on an emotional level, right? And then you tell your audience what they need to do or what they need to learn. And the thing that I use for the image of this, like an eagle's like, huh? Because that's your audience, right? If you just share all these cool stories, they still like, huh? I don't get it. You got to bop them over the head with what they're supposed to take out of this presentation, what they're supposed to get out of the speech, what is the specific action step. And that is what really makes, because again, not everybody is subtle to pick up on the theme or idea. They need to be, we're really yearning to be told, to be given an action step, an item. And so even if you know, in all of these trainings that I've been doing for all of you, I basically give you action steps. I say, here are some principles that I want you to get out of these stories, right? And again, I don't call them laws, because again, who knows whether it doesn't apply in different situations or there's some nuance. I just say these are principles that have worked for me. Again, that's all I can ever do for all of you. I can just share my experiences and leave it up to you to decide what is best for you. So that was tip number 3. Great speeches are great stories and great lessons. And then you have to write the speech. And so it's like, okay, now that I have stories, how do I organize that? What do I actually say? And so this is a good practice for any type of speech that you're going to give. Is you're always going to have an intro. Sometimes that could be a story or whatever, to kick people off. Or after they introduce you, you basically say, hey, everybody, I'm here to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm going to be talking about. This is what you're going to learn. Then you go into the main body and you tell them the stories and the action steps or the principles or the lessons. And then guess what? People need repetition. I read on one of the feedbacks from the last training that we just did about networking, again, because I think it's very important is to collect feedback. We're going to be talking about that. And one of the comments was, Tim, there was too much information. And I'm like, no, I feel like, yes, there's a lot of information because I really want to give you guys so much, but it also helps if I tell you what I'm going to share with you, like I did in this training. I said, here are all the principles we're going to talk about. So some of you have already read of them. I'm talking about them. And guess what? By dividing them into 3 parts, I'm going to have recaps, because you're going to rehear what those principles are. And then that's what's going to help you help those lessons sink in. So again, tell them what you tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Those are great speeches. And then the last thing to become a speaker, and this is going to kind of transition to our second part, which is about sales, is you get their feedback. So you're going to get their contact information, their first and last name, title. They may be, the director of student life. They could be the president of a company, the vice president of a company. You need their email and phone, and you need to do is to print clearly. Now, some of you might say, do we need to print up all that paper if I'm doing it in person? Yes. I'm sorry, trees. I love you. But people, if you tell them fill that out later, they're not going to fill it out. So you have to hand that out and get them people to actually write it. Now, again, all of these trainings are via Zoom. So guess what? I have a Google form, and noticed I got to collect that contact information because it's going to be helpful later on. But the most important part of these trainings is getting feedback. Why? Because you need to know how your speech is, how your product or service, even if you have a side business or whatever, you got to collect the feedback. How would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, right? What did you like most? Can I use that as a testimonial because that's used for marketing material? And then what did you like the least? And then every time someone says anything negative about your presentation or what could have done better, you work on that. Okay, I have many examples where I've changed trainings and presentations or images because of the feedback that I got. And then you'll notice that the more and more practice you get, the better it's going to be. And then the last thing on that feedback, again, is another selling opportunity. Hey, would you like to join my newsletter? Would you like to opt in? Okay. Hey, are you a key decision maker? Would you like me to come back and be a speaker in the future, right, for your organization? Now, asking the question, are you a key decision maker, is very important, because if you had 100 people give you all these positive comments and you got all this contact information, but only 2 or 3 of the people say, yes, we're key decision makers to determine whether you're going to be coming back as a speaker, guess who I'm going to follow up with first? Or if at all, it's those decision makers, right? Because everybody else is a nice to have, but it's like, I need to get to those people because they're the ones who are going to determine if I'm going to come back for a future speech engagement. Okay, so guess what? I'm going to share you my first poster. Okay, this was my first presentation. Just a couple years after college, I was working at NSLS. Look at that picture from me from high school. That was at college when I was a freshman in college. I look so young, and this was the title. Living a life of leadership: how to get ahead in relationships and career. And look at the image. This was like old image free, images when you type in leadership and you have this little icon logo. I look at it now and say, oh my God, this was so cheesy. But guess what? This worked. I used this to go to different campuses when I was traveling around the country. You have a title and you have some bullet points and you have your bio, maybe a picture. That's all you need. And then underneath that is the date, time, and location where you would speak. Now, as I evolved as my speaking career, I'm like, I need more professional looking posters. And so guess what I did? I hired a designer. I even worked on the marketing messages. What could I do to make it better? So this was the second version that I made. Okay, now there was a little bit of an older picture of me, an updated bio. I started branding myself as like America's leadership coach for college students. I got this really cool designer to do this cool poster to make it pop out, colors of leadership, like red and orange, all these other kind of things. Guess what? If I look back at this now, I can say, yeah, that was a really cool poster, right? I think I even changed the name of the training to, instead of enhance your career relationship to leadership, as you start to learn about marketing, different words have different impact and meaning. So I think I eventually changed this to 21 ways to transform, to get ahead in your career and your relationships, or something like that. So again, enhance is a very soft word, enhance, versus 21 ways or all this other kind of stuff. So as you start to learn about marketing and what really appeals to people, it's going to be really helpful. If you really want to learn about marketing, do you know what you can watch? The 10 o'clock news. If anybody still watches news on old cable or television, or maybe look up some YouTube videos, but they always say, oh, question, is this a concern? Is this a problem to solve? And they try to hook you so that you stay to watch the news. Those are experts at marketing to kind of hook people to want to learn more. So creating titles about that. So my experience that I'll share with you, I wasted a lot of money on trying to look good, trying to have the most selling posters. Now, as I got older, guess what? I barely care about this stuff, because it's not the posters that are going to make you, super successful as a speaker. It's how good you are as a speaker. And so now I want to show you what my posters look like after almost 2 decades of speaking. Look at this. It's a white piece of paper. I basically had a title, I basically got a picture, on either a free picture on Pexels, or I may have paid like $1 or $2, centered it, and then had some bullet points and my bio and the location. And guess what? I've had schools that say, hey, can you give us a flyer? They just need a copy of it for presentation purposes. They sometimes have their own designing departments that will spice up my own poster. So I didn't even need to create one. So again, things are changing with digital media. So again, the reason why I'm sharing all this with you, because if I could go back and talk to myself, almost 17 years ago when I was starting out in my career, I would say, Tim, don't worry about paying a lot of money for expensive designing and stuff. It's wasteful. Learn the skills to make a good speaking presentation, keep it simple, and just take action and move forward. As you make more money, then you can upgrade. Because remember, it goes back to the trainings in level 1, where we talked about the biggest challenge leaders face and how to master success habits. We have to learn about prioritization. There's immediate business need, significant business enhancements, and nice to have. And most people who start businesses love to work on the significant enhancements or the nice to haves. Working on a poster is nice to have. The immediate business need is getting on the phone, calling, emailing a school and say, hey, you were interested, can we set up a meeting? Those are more important than how the poster looks. Okay, so the next thing was talking about becoming a coach. Now, I never thought that I would be a coach. I just love to help people. I was really into listening. And then I read this book by Jack Canfield called The Success Principles, How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. And my mentor, Gary Turek, says, this is the most important book since Think and Grow Rich of its time. Like, how are you going to be successful? I think I've mentioned it to you guys several times before, even in level 2 trainings, right? So besides the 64 principles that he outlines in his book, guess what a very, very important principle is? If you want to get ahead in any area of your life, one of the best things that you can do is hire a coach. And so all the winning Super Bowl teams, the most successful teams are they have to have great players, but the coach can actually make or break the difference, right? That's why they get paid so much money. Why are coaches so important? They're important because they have knowledge that you may not have, right? And they may not that they actually hold you accountable. They can give you more step-by-step instructions. Mentors are more like, hey, let me give you my insights. Let me share my stories. They love and care about you, but they're not like talking with you on a week-to-week basis. Like, again, if they do that, oh my gosh, goodness, they're amazing, because that's a lot of time, energy, and effort. But if you can get a coach to really help you, that's going to, make a big difference. So for me, I'm like, where do I go? Which coach do I get? So guess what I did? I asked my mentor. I said, Gary Turek, who should I have as my coach? And he's like, I'm thinking of even Jack Canfield has his own coaching business where he has professional coaches. Should I get it? And he's like, wait up, Tim, don't do that. I know a person by the name of Amelia Zivotofsky, all right, who is my friend. She actually researched and actually did that coaching program. You should actually check with her. Again, wow, what a great job to have mentors. I talked with her, I scheduled a call, and she was very young. I think she was even younger than me, but she was amazing, accomplished so many stuff. She was getting a master's degree in positive psychology. And she's like, Tim, I did the success coaching program. It was okay, but I want to let you know I'm a coach and I would love to work with you. I know that you're just recently, employed, we could come up with some arrangement that works well. And I'm like, let's do it. And so that was my first coach. And I learned so much from her, right? She would actually, prior to our coaching sessions, she would send me this big email and says, see this form, you have to fill this out prior to every coaching session that we have. And it was like, what was your day like? What was your week like? What were your biggest wins? What were your biggest losses? Because then she would read that information and then join the meeting with me and said, let's tackle some of these things that I'm seeing for you, right? Let's set goals and everything like that. So guess what? Once I started to coach, I wanted to use her methods because that's all that I knew. So I would work with different college students. I would have them fill out the form, but then I would do trainings and coaching and I would do all this other kind of stuff. And then guess what? just because your mentor or your coach has done it this way doesn't mean that you have to do that way. So I had to find my own method. And just as a side note, I worked with Amelia for several years. I still coach people now, and I remember the ideas that she gave me about coaching, and it still helps me to this day with some of my clients, and some very, very powerful principles. And one of the principles that I never forgot that she taught me, she's like, when it comes to coaching, sometimes, and this is whether it's therapy or whatever it may be, we have an issue. Let's just say we have mommy issues or daddy issues or something like that. We have a breakthrough, right? And it's like, oh my goodness, I've discovered this is the way I'm doing, this is the way I'm behaving, this is why I do what I do. Guess what? Once you have that breakthrough, sometimes within that year, you come back to that issue. And then you start to get demoralized. You're like, man, why is this issue coming back again? I thought we already resolved that. And Amelia, she was the one who says, no, life is like a spiral staircase, okay? We actually resolve that issue, but because we're in a spiral staircase, you circle back to that same issue. But guess what? You're not the same person you are right now with this issue than you were over here. You're older, you're wiser, but it's just you're tackling a new aspect regarding that issue, whether it's a mommy or daddy issue. So it actually gave me great comfort that, life is an iceberg. We're just always trying to discover how deep this goes so that we can become beings of love and light, et cetera, et cetera. And as a funny side note, again, after I felt like I had learned everything I could from her as a coach. And then again, I needed to have other coaches, but I just wanted to let you know, when I eventually got married and I needed somebody to officiate the wedding, I asked Amelia to actually officiate the wedding, and she was great at it. So let me share with you about my coaching clients. So who did I start off as a client? All I was meeting up was with college students, right? Meeting at different leadership retreats. And so I asked them, right? I learned some of the sales skills that I'm about to teach all of you. And I wanted to let you know that when you start out in your business, you kind of are afraid, right? As a side business, you basically wonder, how am I going to get paid? How much should I charge? What happens if they don't show up to those meetings? Should I charge them if they miss a meeting? And you start to think about, okay, but is what I charge too much? What is my time actually worth? Maybe I want them to actually dedicate for a long period of time, like 3 to 6 months, and then I'll give them discounts. And so I was wrestling with all of this stuff, and I had to get comfortable with actually talking to people about my prices and what I charge. And it was very confusing. I'm like, well, if you pay me a 1 per session, it'd be this much. And then if you pay me this much, you can get this discount because I really want you to do 3 or 6 months. That's what I highly recommend. And it was all this kind of stuff. And I just needed to have practice with it. And then again, some people did 3 months, some people did 6, some people pay as you go, whatever it might have been. And I just negotiated and worked out. But I just want to let you know, I needed to develop my coaching skill gains. So what do? You don't have just one mentor, you have multiple mentors. So once I had kind of like outgrown Amelia and I needed new ways of like working on myself, I told all of you in level 2 in healing between my family and friends and loved ones was Gary Spolansky. He was a shamanic empathic healer. He was my Reiki master and teacher, and he taught me different ways of coaching and almost on an energetic, emotional, deep level. And I learned a lot from him. But do you want to know what took my coaching to the next level? Was doing Landmark Worldwide. So again, when it comes to getting a coach, what's better than paying for a coach is getting a free coach. So what did I do in Landmark? You did the programs. There was a 4-month leadership program. And so once I completed that, they said, you know what, because you've gone through this program, why don't you volunteer and come back and help coach a group of 6 participants who are now going through this program? And as a result, we'll help you achieve your goals, and so it was a mutual exchange. So Nicole Allen was one of the instructors for that 4-month leadership program. And boy, did I learn so much practicing coaching the participants, having somebody shadow me, having someone guide me. And guess what? In exchange, I got all this free coaching. all in exchange for volunteering my time. And that's why it goes back to volunteer. Anytime you can do, especially if you want to be a coach, Landmark Worldwide is a great program for you to do that. After her, I wanted to keep doing it. And then I became a coach for Sean Mader, and he did the program. He no longer teaches that program there, but guess what? I worked with him for 3 years, coaching, and then I became a head coach of that program. So I had to coach the coaches that were coaching people in that program. And what was so interesting is, where did I get my clients from? Well, guess what? I got my clients, some of them from Landmark Worldwide, because some of them, the program would end, but they really loved my coaching for them. Like, Tim, oh, you were so great. I'm like, well, I'm actually a coach. If you want to work with me as an executive coach, we can tackle a bunch of different areas. And most of my clients came just from that word of mouth of volunteering. So again, very, very beneficial. And, I always tell all of you, what I charge clients for my coaching sessions is $200 an hour, right? Or $100 for a 30-minute session. Again, it's much cheaper for Electus members. If some of you guys want to join, become founding members, have that access to discounts or whatever. But, I don't have a necessary credential or gone to a weekend retreat to have some kind of certification, but people are willing to pay you money for experience. So the reason why I'm telling you this story is because I've many times thought, maybe I should get a professional certification in coaching. But you know what? You don't always need it. It can help you. It can help distinguish you. But if you have, like I have coached over 1,000 people in different programs, personal, professional development through Landmark Worldwide, well, guess what? I'm so confident in my skills and abilities that I can do a free session for anybody and say, work with me for an hour. We'll do this. And if they get value from it, hey, do you want me to be your coach? Right. And I would say, this is what I charge and this is what I do. And they either say yes or no. And it really makes a big difference. And that's how I've got a lot of clients. So I actually want to share with you, and this brings back the importance that I really want to invite all of you to get away from worrying about charging for your services and how much, because that's what I was like when I was first starting out. You got to get me for 3 months because I got to make sure I have income and that I can pay my bills. All that stuff is because I was acting out of fear, right? I was acting out of scarcity. But now when you're confident in your ability and you know how much you're worth, all you care about is serving the clients, is how can I best serve them? And it's almost like, you get guidance and answers from your higher self to guide you. How can I best help this person? And I'll give you 2 examples. One, I had this participant who's like, Tim, I really love your stuff, but I can't afford you. I need to do this other coaching program. And I'm like, do whatever works best for you, right? There was no negotiation. No, come back to me. Guess what ended up happening? He did that program and he came back to me 4 months later, like, Tim, I miss you. I miss our coaching sessions. Let's get back onto it. And that's exactly what we did. And then we had several more sessions. I had him for about another year, right? And then he had to go do something else. But I just come from the mindset of like, how can I serve you, right? And it's not like I have to negotiate. I'm like, these are my fees. This is what I charge. Now they can maybe barter. I've done something like that where someone's like, I don't have the money to pay you. He's like, but I can give you in exchange for coaching. I can give you free personal training sessions. I'm like, okay, that's worth it. It's valuable. I'll take it. And then there was one other time I had this participant who basically said, Tim, I really love to work with you and coach you, but I just don't have the finances, but I'm really trying to grow my business, and I really like your skills in terms of sales, training, and stuff like that. And because I wanted to think about how I could best serve him, do you know what I said to him? I said, why don't you do this? I'm looking for clients, I want to be able to support you. Why don't I work with you for 3 months? Okay. You don't have to pay me a thing. And after those 3 months, we're going to get you new clients if you follow my instructions, and that you give me a percentage of the profits of those new clients that you get. And he's like, I could do that. And that's exactly what we did. And guess what? After the 3 months, he made all these new clients. He was super happy. And he actually did the math and he gave me a certain percentage. And it was almost as if he paid me, full balance for all those coaching sessions. Because when you're operating from this mindset, and again, this is a very different mindset of how can I best serve and what would best serve him. You don't have to be a martyr and constantly sacrifice yourself. If you're doing that, you're doing something wrong. You probably might be in scarcity mindset. But other than that, if you're in the flow, anything's possible. Any arrangement could be made, And I would remember coaching clients, or when I used to do therapy, and someone say, if you miss a meeting, I charge you for the session. And for me, that was like draconian, because it's like, my time's so important. And if you miss my time, I could have filled that slot with somebody else. And I'm like, you know what? I'm very a productive person. So if somebody cancels on me, I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to answer emails. I'm going to do something. So I never waste that time. And so I used to put clauses in getting agreements with my coaching clients. I threw that out the window. It's like, what can best serve you? If you need to cancel, just let me know. And, just last week, I had a coaching client says, Tim, I'm overwhelmed. Can we schedule next week, same time? Sure, let's do it. Boom, served him. And this last week we had one of the most amazing sessions that he's ever had. So I want to treat others as I would want to be treated. And so I hope that helps you as you guys expand with your businesses or whatever you want to do. So what did we talk about so far? It's all about build a business on passion and something that you love. Get a mentor, right? You getting them because of their love for you and their knowledge. And then get a coach, and you're getting them for your knowledge, for their knowledge and the accountability. Okay, hey, what are you going to do by when? And so that person's going to kind of push you to push through when you don't want to go to the gym, when you don't want to make that sales phone call, when you don't want to do that, because they're looking out for your best interest. And so again, these were the tips that my mentor told me. If you guys want to become a speaker, write your last speech, write stories and what you know. A great speech, have the best stories and the best learning lessons, like beat them over the head with the action steps. Learn how to organize the speech and collect feedback. That's the most important. Does anybody have any comments or questions based on everything that I shared so far? Any thoughts, comments? Go ahead, Joy.
My question is, I'm working on time management and starting to find a mentor. How do you approach the person? I found a tutor at my school and I want her to mentor me, but she's a doula, she's a tutor, she's an instructor, and I don't know if she has time for me.
Got it. Well, here's what I would say. My experience has usually been people who are great tutors, mentors, and stuff like that want to give back. Okay. They really want to help. And that is a common fear that many people have, that say, I don't want to bother them. Okay. But I would actually look at a different way. If I were to go up to a mentor, the first thing that I would say is, mentor, kind of like this last training we had about networking, I love what you do. Is there anything that I can do to help serve you, help you, promote you? What can I do? Because I want to learn so much from you. Let me know, can we come up with an arrangement where I could just connect with you? You can make as many requests as you want, right? Can I get in? It might be a lot to ask somebody, be my mentor, right? And we're going to be talking about these sales principles. You don't want to ask for the big thing right away. It might be starting off, Joy, with just saying, hey, can I just schedule a coffee or tea lunch with you? Or, after work, can we just have tea or lunch or something, or dinner? I'd love to just pick your brain about your career because I want to do what you do. Would you be so kind to meet up with me, right? You can start off with a compliment. You can make a request. And if they say, no, I can't do that, I'm not free, you can make a counter offer. Well, can we at least meet over phone or on Zoom, or while you're commuting on the bus, or whatever it is, you make some arrangement to make it easier for them. And then you can decide from there. Is that helpful, Joy?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
No problem. All right, let's keep going. So now we're going to move into sales. Yuck, right? In order for you to have a successful business, you have to learn about how to sell. Now, there's a lot of pressure in our society that associates selling as something that is bad. And why is that? Because a lot of salespeople maybe are really focused on making money. And guess what? You can actually make money lying to people, misleading people, right? And there might be a tendency, especially if you're acting out of fear, scarcity, all these things that we talked about, but that is not effective selling. And you may actually pull the wool over someone's eyes and take advantage of them, but that is not long lasting, right? You're going to start to develop a reputation. So there is an ethical way to actually sell, and we're going to be talking about that, so that the whole idea of selling yuck is actually coming from a different point of view of servant leadership style. And that is what helped enable me to be an effective salesperson. I never thought that I would, like, all I care about is leadership and influence and helping people. And it's like, but guess what? Those skills really work well when it comes to sales. I never thought I would become super knowledgeable about that, but it's a skill that a lot of people are afraid of. So if you can learn from me, on these skills, the better. So let's talk about, if I were to tell somebody, hey, I'm going to teach you some skills in sales, I would tell them this two analogies. I said, everything that you need to know about sales can be boiled down to two analogies. One is dating, right? When people try to date because they're looking for a wife or a partner, or two, or husband, or, whoever you want to marry, right? Doesn't matter. And number two, the analogy is selling door to door, selling some kind of product. If you can understand those two concepts, you'll know everything there is to know about sales. All right, so let's go through them right now. So the first off is dating, right? Dating is selling. Guess what? You're actually selling yourself. So how I decided to give a throwback to level 1 and level 2 of Electa Society when I talked about that movie, What About Bob? And he wrote, his therapist wrote that book called Baby Steps. Well, guess what? Sales is a bunch of micro baby steps towards marriage. And so I've outlined them all below. First of all, you might dress nice, dress presentable. You see a person that you like. What's the first thing you might do? Ask to have a conversation with them, connect with them, right? What's the next baby step? I want to get your contact information. Can we connect over the phone? Whatever. Can we actually have a free coffee? Can I invite you for coffee or tea? So do you see how all of these little steps are low risk, no commitment, invitations, and requests to move forward in this relationship? That is what sales is, right? When you go to a website, what is the most fundamental micro baby step that they're asking for you when you join a website? Get this free ebook if you give us your email, right? Get this, video access to these resources, this PDF, if you just give us your email. Why? Because that's the first micro baby step that they want to hook you in, right? Let me get your name and your email. So guess what? I know that you're not going to maybe buy a product from me right now, but it's the start, right? Now I have your contact information. I can follow up with you. I can engage with you, right? And if it goes well, we can go out to dinner. And if that goes well, we can go on several dates. If we go on several dates, we can move in together. And then if we move in together, we might get engaged. And then boom, we can get married, right? All those are a series of baby steps. It's a micro version of different decision making that you have to make. So same thing with sales. And you just have to understand that concept. Don't ask for everything you want right away. Have them experience you, right? Have them experience that stuff. When it comes to your product or services, that's why so many people offer stuff for free. Try it out. Try it for 1 month. Try it for 1 year. Try this session because it's no risk for you. Sign up for a free coaching session. This is what sales is. And you have to be comfortable to do that, knowing, just like in dating, are you going to marry the first person you meet on a date? No, right? But you're going to be dating a lot of people. You're going to get some rejections, who's the, I always remember like all these kind of like stories from different motivational speakers about dating. Sometimes the most, ugly individuals who don't dress very, presentable compared to other people, they get the most numbers. Well, why? It's because they're the ones who are taking the biggest risks, talking to different people, asking for people for numbers. Well, we're going to be talking more about those sales principles, but those are sales principles. Okay, so let's talk about the second one, selling door to door. Now, some of you who maybe ever took economics might have heard the term a widget. Okay, some of you who've not taken economics, you're like, Tim, what the hell is a widget? A widget is a made up word. It's something, it's either a product or service. In this case, it could be a vacuum, it could be a pair of cutting knives, it could be whatever product that you're trying to sell. Now, in order for you to understand sales, all you have to know is, what would you do if you had to sell some kind of widget, right? It could be product or service. Hey, you could be a chiropractor in the town, whatever it is, and you had to go door to door. Who are going to be the best salespeople? Well, the best salespeople are going to be boils down to these three things that they're going to do. Number one, it's a numbers game. So guess what? The more doors you knock on, hello, 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 the faster you are, the more products or services you're going to sell, right? Then number two is, once they open that door, how are you at presenting? Hi, my name is Tim. I'm here because we're trying, and you have some kind of elevator pitch. They say, oh, I want to learn more. I'm worried about this. How much does it cost? And so you have to be able to answer those questions and concerns. And those people who are effectively at their pitches, answering their questions and concerns, those are the people that are going to get more sales. Now, what ends up happening is, when you're meeting up different people and you're trying to sell this product, what might they say? Oh, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk to my partner. Let me get back to you. I'm not sure. I need to evaluate. I need to think about this. Whatever it may be. Well, guess what? You say, okay, let me get your contact information. And then you keep knocking on the doors. But guess what? You go back and you follow up with them. Hey, have you talked to your partner? You can call them, email them, whatever it might be. Maybe you knocked on 10 doors, nobody answered them, right? But then you decided to go back to the doors again and you knock, and somebody came home after work and now they're open. That's tenacity. That's follow up. That's follow through. And if you guys don't think, just use the door to door analogy, I did this with students who wanted to start chapters of NSLS. They were looking for advisors. And guess what? They're like, I have this perfect advisor. And I go to ask them and they said no. And now I'm devastated. I don't think I can continue on with starting a chapter at my school. I said, oh my goodness, you just don't know about sales. I said, imagine you're going door to door and you knock and somebody says no. And then you're like, I guess nobody wants these products. Let me go home in shame. It's like, no, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's because you don't understand the fundamentals of selling. It's a numbers game. It's how you present yourself, how you handle questions, and your follow up and follow through. So I'm going to go into now a little bit deeper on selling when it comes to your elevator pitch and answering questions and concerns, because that's fundamentally all selling is, right? Once they open up that door and you want to talk to them, what is it that you say to them? How can you answer their questions and concerns? So I read a book and met this guy. He actually worked with NSLS at one point. His name was Kevin Down. Now, he was an incredible guy, very charismatic, very outgoing, kind of quirky, very short, interesting guy. And he wrote this book, Roar: How to Get Heard in the Sales and Marketing Jungle. And it was so funny. This is just a side funny story, is that he approached a publisher to publish this book. And they're like, we don't know if we should publish your book. And do you know how tenacious he was about getting the book published? He says, I'm so committed to getting this book and it becoming a New York Times bestselling author that he decided to get a tattoo in reverse of saying the New York Times. So every time he looked in the mirror after his shower, he would see New York Times bestseller, whatever that New York Times. That's what convinced the publisher, this guy is serious. So I never forgot that story. And he showed me his tattoo, right? I don't know if he ever became a New York best-selling author. Maybe he changed up the tattoo after a period of time, but it makes you think, what are you willing to do in order to go after what you want? I never forgot that. So in this book, they talk about the most important fundamental principle of an elevator pitch, a business pitch, or sales marketing material is this idea of called a unique value proposition. And so basically, in order to sell, you have to really identify what is the problem that the person is having, right? And then not only do you tell the problem, you don't jump into saying, here's how I can help solve them. No, 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 no. You need an objective solution. This is their problem. And this, as a consultant, this is what you actually need in order to solve that problem. Oh, I get it. That's what I need, this product or this service. Then you jump into the final step is, now let me tell you about me and how I'm unique and how I'm different and how I am best suited to help you solve that problem. So for example, when it came to coaching, hey, people are suffering from anxiety, not hitting goals, getting, depressed, whatever the problems that people are experiencing. But the solution is that they need a coach, somebody to help motivate them, somebody to help guide them, to push them, to hold them accountable, just like, NFL Super Bowl teams. I am a coach with this number of experiences. This is on my resume, and I have this ability and experience, whatever it is, to help you be your coach if you're interested, right? That is all sales marketing material in a nutshell, right? Maybe there might be more. Then you want to have testimonials, case studies, people validating, some of the other sales principles that we learn in other levels of Elective Society. But now, at least you guys are getting the picture. So I would do this for people, even as a coach. I was hired and I just would help people write the unique value proposition, right? Because you coach on what you know and what you could teach people, because I read this book in and out. So here's the next principle about selling that I want to teach all of you. Know your buyer, right? And acknowledge and resolve their needs and concerns, okay? This is very, very important. The book is all about, it's called ROAR, and that actually has, that's actually an acronym, right? It has a double meaning, like roar, like loud in the jungle, but it also means if you're going to sell to somebody, there's 4 things you really need to do. One, you have to first identify what type of buyer that person is, because that's almost going to adjust the way you position, the way you talk, and the way you handle those questions and concerns. Number 2, you have to it's similar to that. You have to observe from that person's perspective, what are their needs, wants, desires, right? And then guess what? You ask them what their problems are, what their needs are, and those concerns, and you acknowledge them, okay? And then once you do that, you basically, resolve those problems, right? You address them. Now, one of the things that one of the last companies I worked for, I'm going to share this brief little story. This is all about communication. If you want to be a good salesperson, you have to communicate effectively. And I saw this guy, and he was a part of our team, and he had 10 years plus of sales experience, had this big network, and he was selling this service. And they asked me to come in and help this guy with the sales. And guess what he did? He would talk with the client. He would do his whole PowerPoint presentation. And then the end part, which is the most important, is questions and concerns, right? And they would ask questions, and they would say, yeah, I'm really worried about the price. And then he would say, yes, the price is not a concern because we have this, we're cheaper than this. You're like, well, what about the quality of the resources? Like, no, it's the best quality and stuff like that. And he would just try to answer their questions right away. And I was like, oh my goodness, how could somebody with so much sales experience not miss this important thing that even all of you as Elective Society members, you already know all of this, right? It was all about listening and communication, right? The idea of repeating, summarizing. Hey, based on what you're saying, it seems like you really like this product, but you're really worried that you might be paying too much. Is that accurate? Yes, that's what I'm really worried about. I think I'm spending too much money. No. I totally understand. You don't want to overspend, money. Money is very precious for you, etc. I totally get that. Now, let me ask you, besides price, are there any other worries or concerns you have? Again, digging the well, right? How deep does the water go? That was a big factor in making me an effective salesperson, because, and that's what I actually taught him to do. I said, I know it might sound annoying, because he was all about, these are high executive people. They don't want me waste time summarizing. I'm like, summarizing could be just be the last 3 key words that they said, or whatever it might be. You don't have to give a whole paragraph synopsis, but they have to know that you really acknowledge their concerns, because then once they really feel that you acknowledge their concerns and that you understand them, then you can ask the question, can I give you a solution that I think might be able to help alleviate that concern? Yes, tell me, right? Then you give them that solution. That is the secret to good, effective communication, good sales, which all of you should know by already. So now I'm going to teach you a concept which I bet a lot of you don't know about. It's 4 different types of buyers. And you're right. Some people think, well, selling is selling, whether whoever I'm talking about. Like, no, we have DISC, we have different personality communication styles. Well, guess what? People act differently when they need to buy a product or service than versus when you're interacting with them in a networking event. So the first type of buyer that you need to know about is called the disinterested buyer. This person, guess what? They don't care. They don't care about your product. They don't care about anything. Like, they're just living their life. So they're not going to really ask you or want to inquire about your services. So these are the people who usually, when you send them an email, it's, if they don't know you, they're deleting your email. They're skipping it. They're too busy, right? So what you have to really do in order to sell to them is, hey, let me get your attention, do something kind of to like grab them. Hey, we can save you $1,000 off your car. What? Like, now my pique my interest, right? I maybe was thinking a car, but now it's $1,000. So those are the type of things that you got to hook or get them interested. And then once you actually get their interest, now they're going to turn into one of these 3 buyers. Okay, so these are the most common. And then I'll tell you which one I am. So the first one, or the second one, I should say, is called the cynical buyer. Okay, I chose Samuel L. Jackson from the Avengers because look, he got his eye scratched and lost an eye, so he's not going to be more careful, and he's kind of untrusting of people. Well, that's what a cynical buyer does. The reason why they're a cynical buyer is that they've been burned before, and so they're not going to be as trusting as some other people. So you have to prove it to them. So how do you prove it to them? You have to go above and beyond, right? So what did I do when I was working with customers? Like whether I was selling, our leadership program of NSLS, I'm going to say, you know what? How would you like to actually have a behind the scenes look? Or why don't you want to look at some of our videos before you decide whether you want to have our leadership program? We don't typically give this information out to people, but I can see that you really want to know what you're really buying here, and I want to give you access to that. Or let me give you some information that we don't really share with other people. Let's have you look behind the curtain. What are you doing? You're like, oh, this person is very trusting. This person is, I can deal with them. They're not the typical salesperson that's just trying to make money off of me. They really want to make sure that I am a valued person, right? You can explain their benefits of their sacrifices. Listen, I understand that it seems like this, but I'm going to tell you, here's the reality, right? And then your number one focus should be developing trust with them. So that means small, immediate, delivering on what you promised to them. Hey, you know what? I'll get to you by this Friday, and it's Monday. You get to them by Tuesday, right? You keep showing them that you're over delivering. Like, you say you're going to do it, you do it. Because the moment you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, they're like, I can't trust this guy. He said he was going to give it to me Friday. Now it's the following Monday. I'm still waiting for this stuff. I'm done with you. And don't be secretive or lack sensitivity. The third buyer is the wise buyer. Okay, this is the individual that says, you know what? I want to buy a product or services. I want the best person, job, or product for this thing. So they're going to do an analysis. They're going to have a spreadsheet. They're going to compare what the cost is, what the benefits are. They're just like going to be making the best decision. They're acting in the most wise and prudent way. So sometimes people who you try to sell them like, you need this now, or you like try to use emotion, like, don't miss out, don't lose out, whatever it is. It's like, no, I'm just going to make the best decision of the best company for the best service. So do you know what I did with these type of individuals? I actually did all their research for them. I would actually say, here's how we compare to these other people. This is actually why we're better in this aspect. And I did that with my companies. And guess what? They loved it, because it's like, I had to go back to my manager because I have to be a wise buyer and show them that I did all this research and you've already done it all for me, right? So that's how you actually work with those type of buyers. And then the last buyer, please, I'm not trying to insult SpongeBob SquarePants, but he's simple, all right? Doesn't need a lot of information. If you try to say, here are all the details and things about this car, it's like, you might overwhelm them and they might not even buy the car because it's too confusing. It's just, this is what I need. Help me do that. And then you solve that problem, right? Get very specific, don't overcomplicate anything. Don't give them too much information. They just solve their problem. They don't need all the details. They don't need all the research. They're simple buyers, right? Everybody loves these types of buyers because they make life easier for the seller. It's the cynical and wise buyers that are the problem, right? Or getting the disinterested buyers to become the difficult, wise, or cynical buyers. So that's it. So I hope that's helpful for all of you. So that was part 2 of selling door to door, which was know your buyer, listen and communicate effectively, acknowledge their concerns, and do an elevator pitch of your unique value proposition. And the last thing, remember, the door-to-door selling is you have to follow up. Follow up, and follow through. And the same thing was when I was training, interns to start chapters of NSLS. Like, they would try to find an advisor and they would send an email, and then a week later they would send another email. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's going to take forever for you to figure out. I say, send them an email, like, meet with them, show up at their office, call them. If they don't respond to you within 2 days, you send another email, you do another phone call. You could try calling them, leaving a voice message in the morning. And then if they don't pick up, you call them in the afternoon, you don't leave a message. And then you call them in the evening, early evening, and you don't leave a message. It's like, you got to be tenacious. And it's that is the hard work that nobody really wants to do when it comes to selling. That is what's necessary if you are to sell, or whatever it is, product or service. So principle number 6 is selling. Remember how in level 1, the training, high performance communication, I ended the training with saying conscientiousness is the most important skill that somebody can have if they're going to be successful? Well, here's more proof of that. You could have the most outgoing, charismatic salesperson, but if they lack this skill of conscientiousness, they suck as a salesperson. Why? Because if you talk to 10, 15 people and then you get easily distracted and you all tell them that you're going to follow up with them next week, human brains get distracted. You can't remember all those people to contact. You need a system. And so all major significant businesses have a computer system called a customer relation management system. Some of them could be free, like HubSpot, and you can start free. And then as you expand your business, they start charging you like $20 a month, then $50 a month, depending on how much data, how many contacts you have. And these can be really cool systems because like they'll sync with your email so that when you open up that contact of that company or individual contact, it will have all your history, all your messages. You can create calendar reminders and tasks associated. It's just making your life easier. But here's the thing that I want to train all of you in. You don't need that. You don't have to spend all that money doing that. All you need is the skill of conscientiousness and a spreadsheet, because that's all in a reductionist, idea or concept, what a CRM is. It's just a bunch of spreadsheets of different information. It's a database. So I gave you an example. You need a date of when you're supposed to do something, right? A description of the task and the sales stages. Because remember when we talked about dating and sales is all just a bunch of steps. First is your outreach, right? Then if you find out whether they're really interested, then you actually have to schedule a meeting with them or follow up with them. And usually it's a bunch of times, right? Then they're actually interested. Then you send them an agreement or an invoice for the services. And guess what? Now they become a client. And then maybe some people say, no, I'm not interested at this time. Okay, you write down you're not interested. You could schedule to follow up with them later. Or if they say, I hate your product, I hate your service, don't ever reach out to me again. You want to be able to know that. So it's a don't solicit, like I'm not going to reach out to you. Now, again, these can all be in different categories or different boxes or whatever it is, but I'm just giving you kind of the most simplified version. You need their name, company, email, phone, and notes. So every time you actually follow up with them, okay, on January 5th, 22, I sent them an email, I left them a voice message. Then you schedule a task for February 1st to follow up with them again. And then you call them and email them, and then no one picks up. And then you put the date and when you followed up with it. This is a CRM. And guess what? How much did you pay for this? $0. Okay. But these are the most successful strategies to sell. So here's the recap of part 2. All right. And learn the basics of selling. It all comes down to dating, micro decisions, micro little asks, requests to get them to the ultimate goal, and door-to-door selling, right? It's a numbers game. It's how you present yourself, questions and concerns, your unique value proposition, follow up and follow through. Know the 4 types of buyers, right? And know how to acknowledge them and address their concerns. The disinterested buyer, the cynical, the wise, and the simple buyer. And then the last principle when it comes to sales, sell conscientiously using a spreadsheet or a CRM. Okay, so here's the final part of this training, okay? Entrepreneurship. Now I'm trying to scare you guys all off from being entrepreneurs, okay? It's principle number 7 is that you have to know about the entrepreneur myth, okay? What is that myth? Just because you're highly skilled in whatever topic doesn't make you a good business owner. And so there's a very popular book called The E-Myth, right? Revisit it, right? Because it was updated. Why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it. 80% of small businesses fail after several 3 to 4 years. Why is that? I'll tell you why. And it says it in the book, right? In a very great simplified story. You have this person. They love baking, right? Whenever they bake, they love it. It's their passion. Everyone who eats their cookies, their pies, like, oh my God, this is so good. Did you ever think of starting your own business and selling your own cupcakes and all this other kind of stuff? Like, oh my goodness, maybe I should. I'm getting all this positive feedback, all these comments. Yes, let me start the business. Let me do the American dream. But guess what? In order to start a business is not the same as being a baker, okay? Being a business owner, you have to have a whole set of skills. You have to have accounting skills because you need an accountant, right? To help all the expenses and process. You need an operations to make sure that it's being managed, management skills. You need marketing skills to help promote it. You need to actually have selling people to actually sell stuff to your bakery. You need, financing maybe, to bank a loan from the bank. So it's like, whoa, leadership, management, look at all these skills, a lawyer in order to make sure that you're doing things right and processing these agreements. That is not baking, okay? And so what people end up doing is bakers end up starting their own businesses and end up hating themselves and getting frustrated because they're like, all I really wanted to do is bake delicious cupcakes and cookies. And now I'm running this business and I have all these people who are mad at me, who want more money, and vendors who are raising prices, but I don't want to raise prices. It's a whole other hot mess. And I used baking because that was what was used in the book, but you could take any profession. A chiropractor, right? They just, adjust people. Adjusting people and running a chiropractic business is 2 different things. Being a lawyer, I'm a good lawyer, but having your own firm, a law firm, is a whole separate business, right? A dentist, I can do a great job at cleaning teeth, but that doesn't make you a good business owner as a dentist. Go on and on the list, whatever profession that you're doing. So you have to really decide whether you want to be a business owner. Okay. And so the next thing I want to share with you is principle number 8 is beware of multi-level marketing or any kind of residual income businesses, where you become an independent contractor promising you riches, residual money to help beat the rat race. Well, guess what? I participated in those, and I'm going to share you briefly those stories. Okay. First was I did Amway, right? I met this guy. It was at that time called Quickstar because guess what? They were trying to name brand and change their image because I think they may have gotten a negative image. And they're like, look at all these great products and you can use them. But guess what? The secret of Amway or some of these multi-level marketing is you have these products, whether, you guys know the company, Sheckley and Mary Kay and all those other kind of different things, organizations. You end up becoming the customer of that product. And in order for you to make money, you have to sell it to other customers. And you end up spending a lot more money than actually getting other customers, because it's actually uncomfortable to ask friends, acquaintances to say, buy these products, and depending if they're telling you you're going to be rich, or they'll say, don't worry, I'll contact your network for you. It can be very intimidating, right? You could end up damaging relationships with those if they're individuals. When I did it, I'm like, okay, this is great. I'm learning skills on how to sell and persuade and talk to people and stuff like that. But guess what? There was something that didn't sit right with me. The mentor that was trying to teach me, for him, it was all about the money, right? And you can hear that sometimes. And a lot of these trainings, it's all about getting rich, getting rich. If your values is all about getting rich, you're missing the point, right? And I remember looking at my closet, and I had all these different products from Amway, and I'm like, I have all these, wood polishing, cleaners, and I was oversupplied with them. I'm like, what am I doing over here? Because they want you on automatic subscription so that you can keep paying for all this other stuff. So I had to cancel. Then my wife, at one point, when we were doing Landmark, we ended up meeting this individual who's like, oh, I help people become wealthy through this another, multi-level marketing thing called Ambit Energy. And this was even better than traditional multi-level marketing. You want to know why? Because you don't actually have to buy a product. You don't have to buy a product and become a customer. You could become a customer and save money on your energy costs. But then you get to sell this to your neighbors and ask them, hey, do you want to switch your energy to a different supplier and have lower energy costs? And now I don't have to pay anything or buy anything. You're just selling them an idea, and you don't have to do all the work. You just have to introduce people and get them to do it. I knew Michelle wasn't a salesperson, my wife, but I knew that she was trying to make money. She was trying to hustle. She was trying to figure out what she could do. And she saw this as her, when you're thirsty, you want a cup of water. And this was her cup of water. And guess what? She did it a couple of times. She was embarrassed. She tried calling my dad. He almost practically hung up on her, other people. I did it just to help my wife, and I got my neighbor to do it. And guess what happened? An error happened. And then their bill went up in price instead of down. And they contacted me, Tim, you sold us this Ambit Energy, and now our bills are higher. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I had to call the company and figure out what went wrong. When you vouch for something or vouch for a company, you're putting your reputation on that. So you have to really trust what you're selling. Another organization was World Ventures. If you've ever heard of them, you might even see them on social media. They're dream trips, right? They were advertised. You can pay a monthly membership and you get to travel all around the world. Great selling. I even did the math. I'm like, if you get me to go to 5-star hotels and resorts, and I would only pay this much, and then I compared prices, I'm like, this is cheaper. Maybe I should do this. And I ended up joining, but then my grandmother passed away. And I'm like, I can't get involved with this right now. And guess what I discovered? They were promising 5-star hotels, but then when you look at the hotels, I'm like, these aren't really 5-star hotel. They're 3.5-star hotels, and again, listen, if you use it, you love it. I'm not dissing on it. I just don't like people who make promises and don't deliver, right? Or mislead people, right? And I actually have family members right now that are in World Ventures, and now they're called Dream Trips right now. And they show the signs, and they're traveling the world, and they're happy, right? If you're paying for this product and services and you like it, great, you do you, right? But then there was another company. It was called iHub Global. I was going to install these little devices on my house and these antennas, and I was going to start setting up a digital network, and I was going to be paid in cryptocurrencies. And my buddy partner vouched for them. And he's like, yeah, they're making a lot of money. And I ended up buying $400 for this little machine, and it finally got delivered after so many months, and the value of the cryptocurrency was so high, and this was going to be great. It was going to be residual income. I just plug it in. I don't have to do anything. Guess what happened? Didn't make anything. Cryptocurrency crashed, right? Now what was $40 for the one token was now $5 for a token. And, guess what? The company decided to say, okay, we're no longer going to focus on this. We're going to now focus on something else. So beware of companies that are constantly changing their branding, changing their goals, changing their company, changing their direction. It's like, how much did you actually believe in this? How much do you really care about me as a customer? So again, I just have so many stories to go with you. So I'm going to end with this story. We're going to go a little bit over, so my apologies, because I really want to show you this video and share you this story. And what I'll do next time is, again, practice some more so that I can make sure that I end it on time. So that's my commitment moving forward for the next training. I'll do a timer so that I can be more on point. So only work with businesses and partners with high level of integrity. Okay. There are people out there that are known as charlatans. They're also called grifters. These are people who make elaborate, fraudulent, statements of their skills. A con man. Do you know what a con man is? It's a confidence man. They sound so confident that they know all these other things. Now, I can kind of smell BS, in some people, as I'm like, you know what? You don't seem right. If I can really kind of guide your intentions, but here's what I really wanted to warn all of you about. What if you actually talk to somebody who's not necessarily a charlatan, but what if they're a delusional dreamer? And that's exactly what happened to me, right? Without going into any names, without even getting into specifics or gossiping, I met a business partner at Landmark Worldwide, and Landmark was all about integrity and stuff like that. So imagine you met somebody in church or some other group with high level of trust, and they said, I want to go in business with you. You think that if they talking integrity, like, this is somebody I can work with, right? They have ambitious goals, you believe them, because guess what? They believe themselves. And so this guy was highly, dream oriented. He was a high I, according to the DISC scale, very charismatic, very intelligent, hardworking. He basically name dropped all the time. I know these celebrities and these individuals and these owners. And he's like, Tim, because of your background, let's help make $1 billion company. With your skills and my skills, we can work together, and this is growing. If you do well, you can become a part owner. I'm like, oh my goodness, being part owner, this is how I make all this money. And so I would see him. He was talking with individuals. He had contracts, basically had not contracts, agreements with other companies to sell their products and services. And then he basically said, Tim, guess what? We just got a big company to purchase a big solar project, right? In, let's just say, Africa or so we're going to make like $1 million over the next several years after they fulfill this contract. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Like, this is possible. We're going to make it. Like, I told him what my financial needs were, and he's like, we'll do it, like, we'll make it. Like, I'm excited, so I'm working. So I kept having this, almost like felt like I was a horse with the carrot in front of my head, like just walking, knowing that someday we're going to get that money and we're going to get that payout. And guess what happened? Didn't happen. Why? COVID happened. They kept delaying the project, and then when it was another big deal, right? We used this firm that says, oh yeah, 9 out of 10 clients, we're going to save them money. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is great. Let's get some big clients. I was starting to do selling. Guess what? One client didn't make any money. Second client, only $300. Next client, no money. And I'm like, wait a minute, if 9 out of 10 people are supposed to save money and we already have 4 clients and we only made $300 and we thought we were projecting thousands upon thousands of dollars, this is not working, And because guess what? This is what I'm trying to tell all of you. Companies can lie. They can make it in the marketing material, and they can say they're going to give their best case examples, but it may not pan out. And I went to this business partner. I'm like, we can't build a business on this. And they're like, well, maybe we're not getting the right clients. I'm like, they met the threshold. We were following their directions. Those were the clients. I really worked hard to do that. So I keep hoping maybe money's going to come in. And guess what? He's not paying me. I'm depleting my reserves of my banking account. Down, always thinking, I'm going to be making $200,000 or something like that at the end of the year. It never happens. And I said, yo, we got to do something. I'm stressing out. I'm working 7 days a week on the weekends. I'm telling my wife, this is the startup lifestyle. This is what we got to do. No money. All right, we need to go through a different direction. So we ended up focusing on another part of his business that was actually a product that we could sell, and we were selling it. But when he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, I'm like, I'm going to, my life is involved in this. We need to make money. So whenever he was slacking, guess what I was doing? I was picking up the slack, and I was doing his work for him. And I'm like, we gotta survive. I got bills to pay. I got all this stuff. Long story short, depleted all my savings. I had to start dipping into my 401k because I wasn't making money. I eventually had to end the partnership because I'm like, you know what? I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing your work, building on promises that never happen. And I can go into so much more detail about this, but guess what? Here was my learning lesson from this. I didn't have there was one more thing. I didn't have a signed agreement, and I tried to force it before I was going to leave to have a signed agreement so that I could have ownership of the company. But guess what? What's 20% ownership of a company that makes zero money? Zero. Okay. If it could even be worse, the money could be even in debt. I basically had to, end that relationship. It was a very big learning experience for me. I actually have no ill will to that business partner because guess what? It took a lot from me. I had to forgive him, because he was doing the best thing he could do. He really thought that he was going to be a millionaire, right, within 1 year, but it didn't happen. And I don't think that he was a charlatan. Like, I think he loves his family. I think he'll do anything for you as a friend, but he just didn't have the skill and didn't have the discipline in order to be an effective entrepreneur or business person. So again, right now, for those of you guys who got to go, I understand that we're at our time, but there's 7 minutes of this video clip that I want to share with you because again, you can access it. I'm going to put it as an additional resource. There is something that all of you need to know about. It's called the wannabe entrepreneur. There is a stigma in this whole country that you should be an entrepreneur, you should be an entrepreneur. But guess what? There's a bunch of people walking around with the CEO title, having their business cards, but don't have the results. And now there's a whole market that caters to them. Oh, you can become a very successful business. We'll help you. We'll coach you. We'll do you all these things. So it's the whole industry now that really builds up all these confidence in these people, but then they don't make money, right? They're losing more money than they're actually making in their business. So I'm going to play a short clip for all of you right now so that you can see this.
What entrepreneurship industry actors mainly do is to increase confidence. Maybe the way to say it is that it's building up confidence more than it's building up competence. Success in entrepreneurship is just incredibly unlikely. Yeah. It is rare, right? That is one thing that we know for like a real fact in social science. It's really rare. Maybe we should start thinking about entrepreneurship as something we engage in through critical experiments where we try to disprove our idea, right? Instead of saying, let me take this idea and see if I can make it work. You should do experiments and sort of prove out that the idea does not work. And if it turns out the idea does not work, you should get out of it.
Yeah, something I wish I had known before, right?
Or whatever. The best tools for doing that in a way that's meaningful. What I always tell people is you should know the statistics. It shouldn't discourage you from doing it, but you need to know what the real odds are. Now, let's talk about the cost of entrepreneurship real quick.
Yeah, because I think this is actually underappreciated.
I totally
agree. The fact that there are so many costs to entrepreneurship. So just sort of the baseline one, right? I hear a lot of students saying, it'll be great for my CV to be an entrepreneur. And actually the evidence is quite the opposite. It's actually not easier to get a job when you have entrepreneurial experience. It's the opposite. It's harder, right? And there are lots of reasons for that have to do with organizations often wanting people to be specialized.
Right.
And I would say also, if I was an organization, I probably wouldn't want somebody who was a specialist in failing and very comfortable with failing. I would want people who didn't take huge risk, right? That's one part. The other part is that people who become entrepreneurs actually have lower lifetime earnings than people who have like steady wage employment.
You are blowing my audience's mind right now, by the way.
Yeah, okay. So this is an underappreciated fact. And the same actually goes for working in a startup. Working in a startup does not lead to higher lifetime earnings. And Stephen, I mean, we can put the links to the data for this in the show notes.
Please, let's do that.
Because that's actually a real thing, right? Your earnings are generally lower, whether you are an entrepreneur or whether you just work in a startup.
Because because by the way, I want to be clear, the big idea is in a lot of these cases is, hey, the 9-to-5 is holding you down. You need to escape the rat race by becoming an entrepreneur. You need to escape that, live the lifestyle you are meant for with yachts, champagne, and Lamborghinis by going to become an entrepreneurship. And you know what's going to help you? Whether it be a course or whatever form of entrepreneur help, the entrepreneur help. And they get people in, the people aren't successful, and either they quit and they go back to their job, just sort of worse for the wear, or they just like persist and they keep beating their head against the same wall and maybe go buy a bunch of other products. So I do think this is so important for people to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things, right? We know that, not to be like super technical, but the distribution of entrepreneurial outcomes is such that the average doesn't actually tell you anything, because all the gains from or not all the gains, but most of the gains are concentrated in a very few super winners, right? And lots of people who are just getting zero, right? The economics of this are a little bit like professional sports or music, right? There are some people who take home all the earnings and lots of people who don't, right? So average is not particularly informative.
Yeah, if you take the average between myself and Jeff Bezos, we both have an income of, or $1 billion net worth. That means nothing for me, right? And that's exactly, that's your point. Yeah. Very true. Okay, so how can people take that?
There are more costs that I think are worth mentioning.
Go ahead.
Right.
Give us the bad news.
It gets worse.
The bad news before you do good news.
Also, it seems to be the case that entrepreneurs take more antidepressants and psychoactive drugs, right? Not in the illicit sense, but in the—
I understand. Clinical, like, yeah.
Yeah, because entrepreneurship is incredibly stressful, right? Mm-hmm. If you were prone to depression, anxiety, things like that, it gets worse. And if you weren't prone, there's a good chance that it can push you over the edge. Often the uncertainty and insecurity that comes with being an entrepreneur, if you're not particularly successful, and the anxiety that comes with it if you are, right? Because you have employees who you're responsible to, it actually takes quite a strong toll on people's private lives as well. So divorce rates are higher, for instance, and sort of and probably just like relational strain all around, right? And you can see how this can be sort of compounded when we're dealing with not just failed innovation-driven entrepreneurship, but this sort of entrepreneur thing, right? Because there's some sort of, right, you can imagine how your partner, who might be supportive of you trying something and being very sincere about it, might support you as you're trying to build something and just not fail, just not succeeding. But if your partner is seeing through this, right, and seeing that this is just identity work, you can imagine how that strain gets stronger. And you can imagine how once you start reflecting, once you've had a straight streak of failure, and you see yourself as an entrepreneur, the psychological trauma can be sort of quite a lot stronger. And actually, some of the depressing but interesting commentary on the paper after it came out has been from people saying, like, I was a Viblanian entrepreneur.
Hard to watch, but I think it was important. I was one of those people. I thought I was going to be a very, very successful entrepreneur. And again, they go on, and there's a lot more to this where he even quotes, whatchamacallit, Elon Musk, who says, if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's like chewing glass, right? Because you have to go through so much pain. So again, I don't really think that this message is being shared a lot. I feel like one of my business partners, he cared more about the idea of being an entrepreneur, the networking, the recognition to be the CEO, and just those are not the foundations which I think that you want to build a business about, and so it has to come from a different place. It has to come from a loving place, it has to come from a service place. It can't be about the ego. It can't be about looking good or being, and if you can, he goes on to say that the most successful entrepreneurs are not young people. They're much older people in their 40s or 50s who have a whole career being in that industry, that know all the ups and downs, and then later on in life they can take more risks because they're an expertise or more knowledgeable about that. So again, my hope that my failures. And again, I think that my experience, I don't regret it one bit. And I also want to let you know, I don't have any animosity whatsoever to that business partner, because you know what? It's like, you can't be mad at a kid who's trying his best, but that's what he could do. I should have known better to who I want to associate or be in business with, right? So a very valuable learning lesson. I learned a lot of skills. So it's my warning to all of you. So I appreciate it. I'll include that link as an additional resource. So in summary, Principle 7, entrepreneur myth: just because you're high skilled in this one area doesn't mean you're a good business owner. Beware of MLMs, any kind of thing that we're going to make a lot of residual income and get rich. No, becoming wealthy takes a lot of work, and you shouldn't be wealthy for the sake of wealth. You should do it because you're trying to serve people, and only through serving people, money just becomes a tool to help serve more people, right? And only work with businesses and partners with high integrity. So it just, not only your customers, not only your business partners, but who you want to associate with, who, whatever services. If you're in business and you want to partner up with some other company, do they have high integrity? If they don't, get rid of them. They will cause you more headaches than you would believe. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate the time. Thank you for allowing me to go a little bit over. So right now, let me exit out of this. I'll stop sharing. If anybody has any questions, I'll take them now. I'll also include the link for the post assessment in the chat. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask me about this training about starting your own side business? Any final comments?
Thank you for your time.
No problem, Lashti. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. All right. Have a great night, everybody. I won't take any more time. I'll be sending the recording out for those who can make it, as well as these additional resources and links so you can check out the whole presentation. All right. Have a great week. What's coming up next is we're going to have 1 week break. Okay. And that 1 week break is giving any final level 1 and level 2 members the final, ways to kind of catch up with the levels of training. And the reason why is because after that week, we're going to do trainings levels 3 and 4. And again, we're going to be talking about other subjects that are very taboo. Again, you've had to have earned the right to be able to talk about these things because they're far out there, and we don't want just anybody listening to these trainings. And so I want to make sure that the people who are coming into it have gone through all these trainings, have the right mindset, so that we can talk about this high raising level of consciousness and sharing stuff about history and stuff in the past that some of people don't really talk about, and it's starting to become more and more known. And so I want to share with you all what I have learned that can be a little bit controversial. Okay, so thank you guys so much. Have a great night and talk soon. Bye-bye.